Go live. Iremos ao ar.
We go live in 30 seconds. I sent one of our reporters out there to go live from the scene of the protest. We went live on air by telephone for about 10 minutes. The new computer system was supposed to go live today, but the IT department still has some bugs to work out, apparently. Our new website will be going live next month. The new system went live earlier this year. The website has built a membership of more than 100,000 since it went live 2 years ago. Their new information retrieval system went live last month. It's a new security project which will go live in October.
Go live, entrar em funcionamento.
The service should go live this summer. It was originally due to go live in spring last year, but is now scheduled for the end of this year. He will hire 2 assistants when the project goes live next year.
Go live. Cut to the bone. Cortou até o osso.
The knife cut John to the bone. He had to be sewed up.
A faca cortou John até o osso. Ele teve que levar pontos.
It looks like the saw blade cut to the bone. We'd better get him to an emergency room as fast as possible, or he could lose an arm. My mom asked me to cut the meat to the bone. Cut each slice of ham to the bone. Then each slice will be as big as possible. My mother-in-law's insulting comments cut me to the bone. I'm still pretty upset.
Cut me to the bone. Me magoaram profundamente.
He can cut to the bone sometimes with his criticism, but it's always done with the intent of bettering your work.
Cut to the bone. Magoar profundamente.
His mockery, which he meant as a joke, cut her to the bone. The arts program at my alma mater has been cut to the bone.
Reduzido ao máximo.
Our department needs to cut our spending to the bone this quarter.
Reduzir ao máximo.
We cut our expenses to the bone and are still losing money. Congress had to cut expenditures to the bone in order to balance the budget. We have cut the costs of the business to the bone, but they are still too high for us to make any profit. The budget has been pared to the bone. We've had to pare our profit margins to the bone in order to survive.
Blessing in disguise. Uma bênção disfarçada.
Losing that job was a blessing in disguise, really.
A perda daquele emprego foi, na verdade, uma bênção disfarçada.
Illness confined her to the home, which was a blessing in disguise.
O mal que veio para o bem.
Disappointments can often turn out to be blessings in disguise.
Bênçãos disfarçadas.
The eruption was a blessing in disguise for some nearby villages, as it helped sustain the area's agriculture. However, as life unfolds, we go from opportunity to opportunity and begin to understand that the cruel blow was really a blessing in disguise.
Uma bênção disfarçada.
Being laid off was a blessing in disguise. Within a month, I got a much better job.
O mal que veio para o bem.
Franklin's illness proved a blessing in disguise, for it gave him strength and courage, which he had not had before. Running late for work turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I would have been in the middle of that big multi-car pileup had I left the house on time. Dad's illness was a blessing in disguise. It brought the family together for the first time in years. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise.
Fair enough. Tudo bem.
I'm taking it to our local police station. Oh, right, fair enough. I think 200 pounds is a reasonable price. Fair enough. Can I pay you at the end of the week?
Tudo certo. Fair enough.
If you don't like the idea, fair enough. But that's hardly a justification to attack the whole thing. Fair enough. You didn't have a perfectly happy childhood, but your childhood is over now. If you want to waste your time, fair enough. But don't waste mine, too. I think this part of the story would work better with less exposition. Fair enough. I'll try to pare it back a bit.
É justo.
I think we should split the bill. Fair enough.
É justo.
I'll trade you my tennis racket for your skates. Okay, fair enough. She said she didn't want to work for anyone else. Okay, fair enough. The managers want to cut costs, which is fair enough, but they're sacrificing their employees to do it. Letting the students work the machines on their own is fair enough, but they need to do some training first.
É razoável. Fair enough.
The message was addressed to me, and I don't see why I should show it to you. Fair enough.
É razoável.
I'll wait just one more day. Fair enough. You've been very patient.
Fair enough. Come to the end. Come to the end. Acabar.
I'm enjoying my English classes, but they're about to come to an end. Summer always seems to come to an end much too quickly. When the war finally came to an end, Europe was in ruins. Festivities came to an end well after the sun had risen the next morning. The work has finally come to an end. After 3 weeks, the strike finally came to an end. The curtain fell as the play came to an end. I get upset when the nice summer weather finally comes to an end. She and Ellis had been useful to each other, but that stage of their lives had come to an end. The dispute must come to an end. Naturally, in the real world, most good things come to an end. This kind of lifestyle that we'd created for ourselves, which was really pleasant, had come to an end.
Graveyard shift. No turno da noite.
He paid for his studies by working the graveyard shift as a hospital cleaner. His father works the graveyard shift at the bakery.
No turno da noite.
She was put on the schedule for the next graveyard shift. John slept through lunch after getting home from the graveyard shift. I'm a morning person, so I could never work the graveyard shift like you do. If you work the graveyard shift, you are more susceptible to developing a sleep disorder. Here are some recommendations to help those who work the graveyard shift. Not many people volunteer to work the graveyard shift hours. They shared suggestions from people who work the graveyard shift for a living. The pay is pretty good on the graveyard shift.
Graveyard shift. Turno da noite. Do as one pleases. Do Fazer o que bem entender.
As her father, I can do as I please.
Eu posso fazer o que bem entender.
It is easier not to have to be accountable, not to have to justify an action or a position, and to do as one pleases.
To do as one pleases.
Christian freedom is never identified with libertinage or with the will to do as one pleases. If I wish to do as I please, whose life am I ruining? They emphasized the ethic of responsibility rather than the right to do as one pleases. Here, every sort of expression was allowed, and the only law was total individual liberty to do as one pleased. I'm a carefree soul, and I do as I please. I've grown up, and I've got a right to do as I please. At least in my own room, I can do as I please, no? To them, true freedom is being able to do as one pleases. They were largely free to do as they pleased on the island, but they were explicitly ordered to work on Sunday. That said, discretion should not be mistaken for license to do as one pleases.
Fazer o que dá na telha, fazer o que bem entender. Dos as one pleasers. Oh dear. Oh dear. Valorizo muito.
Freedom of speech is a concept which I hold dear.
Valorizo muito.
If you go to jail, you risk losing that which you hold dear, your marriage, your career, and your family.
Que lhe é mais importante.
Even though this old pocket watch doesn't work anymore, I still hold it dear, as it was the last thing my grandfather ever gave me.
Oh dear.
I consider myself a pretty gregarious person, but there are only a few people I truly hold dear.
Tenho grande apreço. Oh dear.
We purport to hold these values dear, but our actions contradict them. He laughed at the ideas they held dear. This government was a threat to everything he held dear. We were facing the loss of everything we held dear. Fidelity is something most of us hold dear. Canadians hold their values dear.
Os canadenses valorizam muito os seus valores.
Canadians hold their values dear.
In a good shape. Em boa forma.
Wow, Jim is in really good shape these days. Mary is in good shape. She exercises and eats right to stay healthy. You have to make an effort to get in good shape. He was still in good shape, better than many young men. Sadly, I'm not in good shape anymore. 12 years working behind a desk has given me quite a belly. The house is still in good shape.
Bom estado.
I'm selling my motorcycle. It's in very good shape.
Em bom estado, né?
I have an old bike that's been in my garage for 20 years. It's not in good shape and it needs some repairs. The TV was acting up earlier, but it seems to be in good shape ever since I smacked it.
Funcionando bem.
This car isn't in good shape. I'd like to have one that's in better condition. If you don't feel much movement, your suspension is probably in good shape.
Se você não sente muito movimento, a sua suspensão provavelmente está funcionando bem.
If you don't feel much movement, your suspension is probably in good shape.
Be finished. Terminado.
One suspects he will be finished with boxing. Are you finished yet? The rebels' ammunition is almost finished, and it is only a matter of time before they surrender. When do you expect to be finished? Are you finished with that drill? I'll be finished in a minute. Once the scandal breaks, he'll be finished as a politician. This financial crisis means that the government's economic policy is finished. As a result of this latest scandal, the senator's career is finished. If this doesn't work, we're finished. With so many deaths, the business was finished.
Kept in check. Mantido sob controle. Held in check.
Unemployment was still held in check, but the economy was stagnating. He's found someone with a bit of fight to keep him in check.
Mantê-lo sob controle. Keep him in check.
There were no attempts to hold global warming in check. He made an effort to hold himself in check. You must learn to keep your emotions in check. The court heard that the general was unable to keep his troops in check. We've got to find ways of keeping our expenses in check. We need to keep the new director in check. Otherwise, he's going to do serious damage to the company.
Manter sob controle.
I was so angry I could hardly hold myself in check. It was difficult to hold their enthusiasm in check.
Era difícil segurar o entusiasmo.
It was difficult to hold their enthusiasm in check.
Fuditude. Antiquada.
Jen, don't be such an old fuddy-duddy.
Old fuddy-duddy. Antiquada.
They think I'm an old fuddy-duddy because I don't like to get drunk.
Antiquada.
You may accuse me of being an old fuddy-duddy, trying to stop young people having fun. I know she seems a bit fuddy-duddy by today's standards, but are you sure you really know what you're doing? The fuddy-duddy priest believes the robot will reach the younger generation and help them overcome pain and ease suffering. Quit being such an old fuddy-duddy. Lighten up. Perhaps we did acquire a somewhat fuddy-duddy image in the later years. Look, I'm a minister, and I try to do things right. I object to being represented as an old fuddy-duddy. He didn't want all those old fuddy-duddies around. It's not your fault I'm related to this fuddy-duddy by marriage.
Careta.
That's because he's a fuddy-duddy with no sense of style. Isabella, I hate to be a fuddy-duddy, but we keep the house smoke-free.
Careta.
Darling, when did you get to be such a fuddy-duddy? The critics began to see me as a fuddy-duddy.
Fuddy-duddy.
People assume I'm a fuddy-duddy, Gary said.
One thing leads to another. Uma coisa puxa a outra.
Inevitably, this becomes addictive. One thing leads to another.
One thing leads to another.
We kissed and, well, one thing led to another. At first, we were just talking a little, but one thing led to another and he asked me out. I agreed to help him paint the house, and one thing led to another until I ended up helping him fix his kitchen. You know how it is. You try to make one small improvement to your house, but then one thing leads to another, and you end up repainting the entire first floor. We were just going to meet for coffee, but one thing led to another, and we spent the whole night walking around the city and talking. I kept spending more and more money until I went bankrupt. You know how one thing leads to another. He bought a car, then a house, then a boat. One thing leads to another. I never thought I'd be a president, but after they closed down the university where I was a professor, I became a kind of spokesman. One thing led to another, and so here I am today. He offered me a ride home one night, and, well, one thing led to another, and now we're engaged. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I had invited her family to stay. However, one thing leads to another, as smokers and alcoholics all know only too well.
Beg to differ.
I must beg to differ on this point.
Preciso discordar nesse ponto. I must beg to differ.
I must beg to differ on this point. You say that the candidates are essentially the same, but I beg to differ.
I beg to differ. Eu devo discordar.
I'm sorry, headmaster, but I beg to differ. Students at this school should have more access to financial aid and scholarships, not less. He thinks that the evening was a disaster, but I beg to differ. I saw plenty of guests enjoying themselves. I beg to differ with you, but you have stated everything exactly backwards. If I may beg to differ, you have not expressed my position as well as you seem to think. I must beg to differ on this. I think you are quite mistaken. John told me Max was sure to win, but I beg to differ. I don't think he has a chance.
Discordar.
A great many economic historians have begged to differ.
Grande número de historiadores econômicos tem uma visão oposta.
A great many economic historians have begged to differ. This is obviously an extremely dangerous game, he opined, and none begged to differ.
Skip a beat. Para.
Every time he looks at me, my heart skips a beat.
Meu coração para.
I swear my heart skipped a beat the first time I saw my wife. My heart skips a beat every time I'm called into my boss's office. When I learned I was on live television, my heart skipped a beat. The shocking news made her heart skip a beat. My heart seemed to skip a beat when I parked my car at the old supermarket. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. Stop, the soldier ordered in a stern voice. Indeed, he did not skip a beat, stayed right with his training regimen, and flew out to Seattle on August 8th.
Titubear. Não titubear.
The boss didn't skip a beat during the meeting when his son-in-law staggered in, reeking of booze. You can't fluster my mother. No matter how you try to shock or annoy her, she never skips a beat. Are you jealous? Only when I'm not in control, he says, not skipping a beat.
Break one's back. Se matando de trabalhar.
He's been breaking his back getting the house ready for their visit.
Broke his back.
He broke his back to get the project done on time. I've been breaking my back trying to get a passing grade this semester, so failing by 2 measly points is incredibly frustrating. Don't break your back trying to please these people. They'll never appreciate it. I've been breaking my back over this problem for the past week. Don't break your back trying.
Não se mate tentando.
Don't break your back trying. I broke my back to deliver everything before the deadline. When you're breaking your back to make a business work, it's going to cut into your time with family. I had been traveling all over, breaking my back just to get a job. I've been breaking my back to sell as many books as I can.
Put one's feet up. Relaxe.
You go home and put your feet up.
Put the feet up.
After working all week, you deserve to put your feet up.
Pôr os pés pra cima.
It's a cozy place, perfect to put your feet up and relax with a well-earned beer. I'm always glad to get home, put my feet up, and relax. After a long day at work, I love to come home, put my feet up, and watch some TV. He was really exhausted and had to go put his feet up. Time to put up my feet and get some rest. Take off your coat and put your feet up. At least put your feet up for a few minutes. Would you like a drink? This gave him time to put his feet up and relax. I'm going to go home and put my feet up.
Know only too well. Sabemos bem até demais.
We know only too well how stressful moving can be. I know only too well that I can't win the lottery. I know only too well that plans can easily go wrong. He knows only too well what this means for farmers. As a small business owner, I know only too well how tough it is to succeed in this economy. Chuck knows only too well how difficult it can be growing up when you're different. I knew only too well how dangerous the operation might be. He knew only too well what it meant to go to war. Prices have risen sharply, as we know only too well. I know only too well the kind of problem you must face. Oh, I know sleep deprivation only too well, with 3 toddlers at home. Do you know Alex Humber? Oh, I know him only too well. He's not one of my favorite people, I'm afraid.
Have a head for. Tem a cabeça boa para.
Kim has a head for numbers. She's always had a head for business. I've always been good at math. I guess I just have a head for numbers. Jane has a good head for directions and never gets lost. Bill doesn't have a head for figures and should never become an accountant. Like most women, I have no head for politics, sir. She has a good head for figures and straightened out the statistics in no time. Nell has no head for liquor. I never had a head for flying before, but I'm getting used to it now that I have to travel so much for work. Luckily, I have a head for heights. Working on bridges doesn't bother him. He has a head for heights. Jed likes to climb rock walls without a rope, so you can definitely say he has a head for heights. I won't go up the church tower with you. I've no head for heights.
Third times the charm. A terceira vez Seja da sorte.
I've already failed this test twice, so hopefully the third time's the charm. Try turning the generator on again. Okay, here we go. Third time's the charm. The old saying, the third time's the charm, applied in this instance. Third time's the charm for Joe Biden. Now he has an election to win and a country to save. Third time's the charm. At least that's what he is hoping. Hopefully, third time's the charm, and the pup will find a permanent owner. I've called her twice, but she doesn't answer her phone. Try again. The third time's the charm. Barcelona, having lost the 1961 and 1986 finals, hopes it will be third time lucky.
Third time lucky.
Everyone is praying that this time it will be third time lucky. I've applied to be manager twice before, so let's hope it is going to be third time lucky.
There.
There, don't cry. Everything will be okay.
Pronto.
There, you'll feel better after you take a nap. There, never mind. You'll soon feel better. There, said Mum. You just had a really bad dream. There, sweetie. Everything is going to be fine. You'll see. There, it's okay. We can fix your broken toy. All I could do was put my hand on my heart and say, there. There. Even though you broke up with her, you'll be fine. There, it can't be all that bad. Please don't cry. There, you just fell, and not very hard. Your knees aren't even scuffed. Nothing's broke. You're not bleeding. Don't be so upset. There. I'm sure your dog will find his way home. He's not gone forever.
No-brainer.
The decision was a complete no-brainer.
Moleza.
Taking that job over the one I had was a no-brainer.
A decisão óbvia.
The decision to invest in the energy company was a no-brainer. It should be illegal to drink and drive. That's a no-brainer. Seems like a no-brainer to me. If you ask me, it's a no-brainer. Of course you should accept the job. Until recently, the decision was a no-brainer. The answer to the riddle was a total no-brainer. I don't know why it took me so long to figure out. His proposal of marriage was a no-brainer. She turned him down flat on the spot. If the newer version performs as well for half the cost, the decision is a no-brainer.
To be climbing the walls. Subindo as paredes.
When Jolie went missing, we were practically climbing the walls. Being stuck at home all weekend had me climbing the walls. Sitting at home would only have had him climbing the walls with frustration. If she makes another foolish blunder like that, I'll be ready to climb the walls.
Climb the walls. Deixar maluco, perder o juízo.
The doctor hasn't called me with the test results yet, so I've been climbing the walls. The kids soon had him climbing the walls. His job had him climbing the walls. It had been a mess, and I was climbing the walls and was a little bit bitter. After another day of heavy rain, we were all climbing the walls. It's too cold and wet to play outside, and the kids are climbing the walls with frustration.
All smiles.
She was all smiles as she opened her birthday presents.
Toda sorridente.
I know Allison had a rough week, but she was all smiles when I saw her today. My sweet little daughter has the best disposition. She's always all smiles. The next day they were all smiles, as if the fight never happened. Meanwhile, his audience was all smiles from the start. She's never been very friendly, but she was all smiles when she asked me to help her with her homework. He was all smiles and was absolutely thrilled. You know how Lana is. Tears one moment, all smiles the next. She's all smiles when the subject is brought up. He was really depressed about the company last week, but he's all smiles now. A very big order has just come in.
Know for a fact. Sei com certeza.
I know for a fact that he was lying. I know for a fact that baby corn is very expensive in Europe.
Sei de fato.
I know for a fact that Graham has kept in close touch with Alan. I know for a fact that he cheats in cards. I saw the ace up his sleeve. My mom says she knows for a fact that I'm getting the internship at her company, but I won't believe it until the recruiter calls me. I know for a fact that he can't speak a word of Japanese. If you know the answer for a fact, please get in touch. I know for a fact that his mother and father didn't have any siblings, so he doesn't have any cousins. I know for a fact that he did it. He said he knows for a fact that's not true.
Before one knows it.
We'll be there before you know it.
Nós estaremos lá rapidinho.
You'll be home before you know it. Spring break will be here before you know it.
Antes que você saiba. Rapidinho.
You will be fully recovered before you know it. The game was over before I knew it. A week seems like a long time, but Saturday will be here before you know it. I'm not far from your house, so I'll be there before you know it. If you keep spending money like that, you'll be broke before you know it. It happens before you know it.
Antes que você se dê conta.
Before I knew it, I fell asleep. Before you know it, you'll be graduating, so start thinking about your future now.
Deixa eu pegar o if. A princípio.
We'll go slowly to begin with. There were 6 of us to begin with, then 2 people left. It was great to begin with, but now it's difficult.
Foi ótimo a princípio, mas agora é difícil.
It was great to begin with, but now it's difficult. The kids helped me to begin with, but they soon got bored. I found it tiring to begin with, but I soon got used to it. I didn't break it. It was like that to begin with. You should have said you were feeling ill to begin with. I wouldn't have given you such a hard time if I'd known. The hotel was awful. To begin with, our room was far too small.
Para início de conversa.
What do scientists think about that? Well, to begin with, they doubt it's going to work. We had an awful time. To begin with, Cameron got sick on the first day. Why were you annoyed? Well, to begin with, I missed my train. Well, to begin with, he shouldn't even have been driving my car. How did you get involved to begin with? I never would have bought this car to begin with if I'd known there weren't airbags.
A matter of rats.
Learning to ride a bicycle is a matter of practice.
Uma questão de prática.
His success was just a matter of being in the right place at the right time. It's only a matter of time until we catch him. It's a matter of sticking with the program in order to succeed. With your reckless spending behavior, it's only a matter of time before you go bankrupt. I don't care about the money. It's a matter of principle. Don't worry, it'll only be a matter of hours before he gets back. Choosing the best ball player of all time is really a matter of opinion. The pasta cooks in a matter of minutes. The crisis was resolved in a matter of a few hours. In a matter of seconds, the building was in flames. She insists on honesty as a matter of principle. All requests for free tickets are turned down as a matter of policy. He invited her as a matter of courtesy. As a matter of fairness, he should be allowed to give his version of events.
Running me into the ground.
These children are running me into the ground. If you keep working 80-hour weeks, you'll run yourself into the ground sooner than later.
E deixar esgotado.
He ran himself into the ground and collapsed with exhaustion at the end of the game.
Deixar esgotado.
In just 1 year, she managed to run her new car into the ground.
Arruinar o carro.
During her brief time as chief executive, Marjorie just about ran the company into the ground. If you would just remember to get your oil changed, you wouldn't keep running your cars into the ground. You've run the upcoming election into the ground, and I simply won't listen to another word about it. We've all moved on from that problem, so there's no use running it into the ground. They've run the abortion issue into the ground. After nearly 3 months of searching, we finally ran the suspects to ground.
Alcançamos os suspeitos.
The record is quite rare, but I managed to run a copy to ground at a flea market in Atlanta. Detectives finally ran the terrorists to ground in an apartment building in Chicago.
Localizaram os terroristas.
The escaped prisoner was run to ground within a couple of days.
Foi localizado. A great deal.
They made a good deal of noise.
Eles fizeram muito barulho.
They made a good deal of noise. She spent a great deal of money on furnishing her apartment.
Grande quantidade.
He asked for little, but received a great deal.
Muito.
She received a great deal of sympathy for her loss. A great deal of research has been done already. She spent a good deal of time on the project. It took a great deal of time and effort. He runs a great deal. They say he works out a great deal, but that seems little to me.
Frequentemente.
I don't watch TV very often, but I read a great deal. This is a great deal better than the other option. She's married to a man a good deal older than herself. He knew a good deal more than I did. I think a great deal of that book. I can tell your last boss thinks a very great deal of you, judging from the reference letter she wrote for you.
A great deal. Autoestima.
Somehow, I doubt the mayor will think a great deal of an article exposing all of his financial details.
A fishing expedition. Jogar verde.
We can try going on a fishing expedition. Maybe that will get us something.
Jogar verde.
He's just on a fishing expedition. Pay no attention to him. The prosecutor was accused of engaging in a fishing expedition. The lawyer was on a fishing expedition. There was no real wrong committed to justify a lawsuit. The investigator's request for the company's accounts is simply a fishing expedition. They have no real evidence of wrongdoing. This is nothing more than a fishing expedition aimed at uncovering dirt on our candidate. I know why you're here. You are on a fishing expedition. You're hunting for material.
Eu sei porque você está aqui. Você está levantando informações. Está caçando material.
I know why you're here. You are on a fishing expedition. You're hunting for material. We are going to have to go on a fishing expedition to try to find the facts. The sales force was told to go on a fishing expedition to find out what they could about the company's competitors. In the U.S., police are not allowed to go on a fishing expedition in your house without a search warrant.
Search warrant. Mandato de busca. A dime dozen. A dime a dozen. Se encontraram.
Action movies are a dime a dozen these days.
Filmes de ação se encontraram em cada esquina. Hoje em dia. Dime a dozen.
Plastic toys like this are a dime a dozen. Writers like him are a dime a dozen.
Se encontra a cada esquina.
In Los Angeles, waiters trying to become famous actors are a dime a dozen. That bird might be a rare sight where you come from, but around here, they're a dime a dozen. People who can write good books are not a dime a dozen. Romantic movies are a dime a dozen. Films about primitive people are a dime a dozen right now. Books on golf are 2 a penny.
Se encontram por toda parte.
At first, they were quite novel and interesting, but now these little organic cafes have become 2 a penny.
Viraram comuns.
History teachers are 10 a penny at the moment.
Professores de história se encontram em cada esquina no momento.
History teachers are 10 a penny at the moment. Gloomy economic forecasts are 10 a penny in Europe.
Lose one's edge.
At one point, I was considered one of the best tennis players in North America, but I lost my edge during college.
mas perdi minha forma durante a faculdade.
As a company, they had lost their competitive edge. Its critics say the magazine is out of date and has lost its edge.
Perdeu sua capacidade.
Its staff disagrees with criticisms that their magazine is out of date or has lost its edge. Over the years, Germany, to some extent, lost its edge as a manufacturing base because of cheaper wages in Eastern Europe. He used to be one of the best, but after he got married, he lost his edge.
Ele costumava ser dos melhores, mas depois que se casou, perdeu a forma.
He used to be one of the best, but after he got married, he lost his edge. If you don't keep practicing the piano, you'll start to lose your edge. You have to practice several hours every day and constantly learn new things not to lose your edge. You'll lose your edge if you aren't careful. He got lazy, started drinking, and lost his edge.
Can't begin to imagine. Não consigo nem imaginar.
I can't begin to imagine how awful it was.
Eu não consigo nem imaginar o quanto isso foi horrível. Awful.
I can't begin to imagine how awful it was. I can't begin to imagine what it's like for him, bringing up 3 kids on his own. I can't begin to imagine how dreadful their party was. I can't begin to imagine your loss, but try to see beyond your desire for revenge. As a wealthy businessman, he couldn't even begin to imagine real poverty. Thank you for all you've done. I can't even begin to imagine how hard it must have been for you. You can't begin to imagine how much that saddens me. She can't begin to imagine the pain I see every day when I'm out there. You can't begin to imagine how dangerous she is. I can't begin to imagine why anyone would want to be cruel to animals.
I can't even. Eu não aguento.
Oh my God, I hate you so much. I can't even. I have so much work to do. Ugh, I can't even. That's so confusing. I can't even. That stupid girl is engaged and I don't even have a boyfriend. I can't even. Did you see that kitten's cute little face? I can't even. This is just so ridiculously cute. I can't even. Did he really say that? I can't even. Are they the greatest couple ever or what? Yeah, I can't even with those two. I can't even with the show. How many awesome characters are they going to kill off? Did you hear that Mary and Joe broke up again? Ugh, I can't even with those two. I hope this breakup is permanent. I can't even with this place. I want to go home.
Collect one's thoughts. Colar os meus pensamentos em ordem.
Can I please just have a second to collect my thoughts before I respond? Susie paused to collect her thoughts and come up with a tactful response to her sister. I'll speak to the visitors in a moment. I need some time to collect my thoughts. I just wanted a quiet place to collect my thoughts. I got up, feverish and nervous. I walked out before breakfast, striving to collect my thoughts and tranquilize my feelings. Why don't you take some time to collect your thoughts? The blow was so sudden that I found it hard to collect my thoughts. Sometimes you want to do something right away, but it's good to collect your thoughts. To me, it's always better to sleep on it. I got there early, so I had a few minutes to collect my thoughts before the meeting began. I welcomed the opportunity to relax a little bit and collect my thoughts. I took a moment to collect my thoughts and likewise to frame in French the sentence by which I propose to open business.
Winning streak. Maré de sorte.
The team are on a winning streak.
O time está em uma maré de sorte. Winning streak.
That makes us feel confident because we know that we are on a winning streak. Well, I regret to inform you that your winning streak has come to an end. We've finally started having a winning streak with our latest products. Caught up in an unbelievable winning streak, I started making riskier and riskier bets until I ended up losing everything in a single game of cards. Our son-in-law has been on a winning streak with his investments. During the winning streak, the team won 5 championships.
Série de vitórias.
Eventually, however, his winning streak comes to a halt as he loses all of his winnings. We still have 4 games left, and we can still put together a winning streak. Can the firm extend a winning streak for 100 years without losing its high credit rating? The team, considered the least likely of the entire league to make it to the playoffs, has continued its remarkable winning streak.
Take something to the next level. Dar o próximo passo.
5 years after founding my software company, I'm ready to take it to the next level. He doesn't want to take it to the next level. He is just happy to play it safe. If things work out, the two of you can take it to the next level and start making long-term plans. She wants a coach who can take her game to the next level. It's time to take your training to the next level. Colorful painting finishing takes your kitchen to the next level. Go beyond photos and videos and take your gaming to the next level. I think it is time to take things to another level. However, a death threat takes things to another level. She had no choice. She had to take it to another level.
Groundbreaking. Revolucionário.
This groundbreaking work changed the way historians looked at slavery.
Este trabalho revolucionário mudou o modo de os historiadores verem a escravidão.
This groundbreaking work changed the way historians looked at slavery. She was honored for her groundbreaking work in nuclear physics. I'm reading about Pasteur's groundbreaking work in bacteriology. We made 2 groundbreaking discoveries this week. To listen to that groundbreaking message was a privilege.
Groundbreak.
This groundbreaking legislation will influence the laws in this nation for decades to come. According to the publisher, this book is groundbreaking. The latest model includes several groundbreaking features. His latest movie is interesting, but not groundbreaking. The narration in this novel is truly groundbreaking. I've never read anything like it. We offered them the opportunity to learn about social research and to aid a groundbreaking study.
But once back into something. Nos esforçamos com isso.
If we really put our backs into it, we could finish today.
Se realmente nos esforçarmos com isso, podemos terminar hoje.
If we really put our backs into it, we could finish today. You could dig this plot in an afternoon if you really put your back into it. If you want to get that floor clean, you'll have to put your back into it. If you put your back into that report, you'll soon be done. Come on, we need to get this car off the road. Put your back into it and push. It's clear that the legislators have put their backs into crafting this bill.
Se empenharam.
It just shows what can be achieved when people commit to something and put their backs into it. We'll get the job finished today if we put our backs into it. I really put my back into it, you know. She can do it in 6 days walking if she puts her back into it.
Buck the trend. Resistindo à tendência. Buck.
This company is the only one to have bucked the trend of a declining industry.
Esta companhia é a única a ter restrito a tendência de uma indústria em declínio.
This company is the only one to have bucked the trend of a declining industry. Scottish industry bucked the UK trend with a 5% rise in exports. Although property values in our city are down overall, one neighborhood is bucking the trend and still getting fair market value. They bucked the trend to outdo everyone else and just wore the same clothes they had in previous years. The newspapers mentioned a movie that appeared to be bucking this trend. The shares bucked the market trend. Google surprised many by bucking the market trends. Unemployment in the area has bucked the trend by falling over the last month. The shares bucked the market trend, rising slightly. In spite of the pandemic, these students are bucking the trend and taking early steps to continue their education.
Be particular about. Exigente com.
He is very particular about the kitchen. Everything has to be perfectly clean and in its place.
Ele é muito exigente com a cozinha.
Ted was very particular about the colors he used.
Muito exigente.
She's very particular about her clothes. His father, who was in the army, was very particular about the children's education. He was particular about what sort of food should be mentioned on the show. She is very particular about what she eats.
Muito minuciosa.
I get teased by all my colleagues for being so particular about the cleanliness of the shop. People are very particular about the interiors of their cars. My friend's very particular about her pasta, and she swore that the noodles were perfectly. My friend's very particular about her pasta, and she swore that the noodles were perfectly cooked. The man is so particular about his hair that he refused to let anyone cut it for 12 years. I paint my nails, go to the mall, and am very particular about how I dress.
See beyond. Enxergar além.
Can you see beyond that big tree over there? It was impossible to see beyond the person directly in front of us in the snowstorm. You can't see beyond the bend on these sharp turns, so you'll need to take them very slowly. I tried to see beyond the 2 police officers guarding the door to figure out what was happening inside. I can't see beyond the end of the road. I think I need glasses. Tom's problem is that he can't see beyond the next day. Todd is usually able to see beyond his immediate situation. I don't know what happened this time. The government cannot see beyond next year's election. A few savvy investors were able to see beyond the dire financial situation, setting themselves up for huge profits down the line. You have to learn to see beyond the issues you're having in the here and now if you want to improve things in the future. You've got to see beyond your own petty issues and realize that there are much more important things at stake right now. The CEO is trying to see beyond the company's current role in the market in order to expand and diversify its revenue streams.
To put one's finger on something.
I can't put my finger on it, but there's something different about you.
Não sei dizer bem o que é, mas há algo diferente com você.
Something seemed to be wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
Não sei dizer o quê.
I can't put my finger on what this is reminding me of. There's something off about her story, but I can't put my finger on it. There's something off about her story, but I can't put my finger on it. Midge couldn't quite put her finger on the reason. There's something odd about him, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I know his name, I just can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on the person in that photograph.
Não me lembro da pessoa.
I've heard about it before, I just can't put my finger on it. Well, I think you put your finger on it when you brought up the issue of tax increases for lower earners. That is correct. You have certainly put your finger on the problem. When she mentioned money, she really put her finger on the problem.
The here and now. O aqui e o agora.
It's important to be able to live in the here and now and not always focus on the future. Instead of staying in the here and now, you bring up similar instances from the past. Try to live in the here and now instead of focusing so much on what the future may bring. I don't care what's happening tomorrow or next week. I care about the here and now. The past is dead. Let's worry about the here and now. My obligation is in the here and now. We have to look beyond the here and now and think about our future. Most people can't be bothered thinking about their retirement. They're too busy concentrating on the here and now. While we can plan for the future, we must first deal with the here and now. Yes, but I'm not worried about his past production. I'm worried about his low sales in the here and now. They advised me to think about the here and now instead of past relationships.
To be on speaking terms.
We had an argument, but we're back on speaking terms now.
Tivemos uma discussão, mas agora voltamos a nos falar. You're back on speaking.
You have two sets of officials, hardly ever on speaking terms, with great rivalry between them. She parted from her mother barely on speaking terms. The couple wasn't on speaking terms since the argument. We're finally on speaking terms again after not talking for 2 weeks. For a long time, her mother and her grandmother had hardly been on speaking terms. He isn't on speaking terms with half of the family. The two brothers weren't on speaking terms for years. He was not on speaking terms with his brother or sisters. You're friends with Jenny, aren't you? We're on speaking terms, but I wouldn't say we're friends. We're on speaking terms with the new neighbors. We're not just acquaintances anymore. Now we're on speaking terms.
Down payment. Entrada.
Celeste asked for the money as a down payment on an old farmhouse. As it turns out, they were going to use the money for a down payment on a house.
Entrada. Down payment.
The situation forced the company to slow production, offer discounts, and reduce down payment requirements. A down payment of $1,000 will be handed to her immediately, and the remaining money will be paid within 2 weeks. Down payments decrease the amount of interest paid over the lifetime of the loan. If you're borrowing money for the down payment, provide a copy of the entire loan agreement. I made a down payment on a new smart TV. She made a 10% down payment on the car. We put a down payment on the house. He proposes to pay a down payment of $550 and the remainder the next morning.
Take a stand. Tomar uma posição. Take a stand.
It's time for you to take a stand and tell them that things need to change. I know voicing my opinion on this legislation may put my job in jeopardy, but it's time to take a stand.
Se manifestar.
All the other kids in the class were too afraid to speak out, but Georgina took a stand for what she knew was right. The treasurer was forced to take a stand against the board because of its wasteful spending. She was more than willing to take a stand on abortion rights. It's time for Congress to finally take a stand on this issue.
Tomar uma posição.
My father is always so wishy-washy, never taking a stand on anything important to him. There will come a time when you'll need to take a stand for the changes you want. I hope you take a firm stand on the need for more office security. The treasurer took a stand, and others agreed.
Take issue with. Discorda totalmente.
She takes issue with the notion of crime as unique to contemporary society.
Ela discorda totalmente. Takes issue.
I take issue with parents who push their children too hard. She took issue with the conclusions reached by the study. I take issue with the wording in this paragraph. If you take issue with me or my methods, feel free to hire someone else. I heard your last statement, and I have to take issue with you. I want to take issue with the last statement you made. I take issue with those figures. They don't include last month's sales. I must take issue with you on the question of teachers' pay. It is difficult to take issue with his analysis. I must take issue with you over what you said yesterday. Tom took issue with Maggie about the cost of the house.
Discordar. Take issue. In broad daylight. Em plena luz do dia.
They robbed the bank in broad daylight.
Broad daylight, em plena luz do dia.
Thieves have broken into the house in broad daylight. We never expected coyotes to come into our yard in broad daylight. The crime was committed in broad daylight. A girl was attacked on a train in broad daylight. The robbery happened in broad daylight in a busy part of town. The gangland feud is getting so bad that people are being shot in broad daylight. What's the world coming to when even a nun gets robbed in broad daylight? 6 gunmen attacked his car with automatic rifles in broad daylight. He was attacked right in the center of town in broad daylight.
As good as one's word.
Tom is as good as his word. If he promised to help you move, then he'll be here.
Tom é pessoa de palavra.
You'll find that she's as good as her word. She always comes if she says she will. He was as good as his word. He lent me the books as he said he would. She said she would babysit, and she was as good as her word. He said he'd call every day, and he was as good as his word. Our pilot promised us a spectacular trip, and he was as good as his word. Carrie told them she was going to pay off what she owed, and she was as good as her word.
Manteve a palavra.
Even his harshest critics had to concede that he'd been as good as his word. He was as good as his word and came to see me as soon as he arrived. She was as good as her word, calling her mom every Sunday.
Sweep under the rug.
This scandal can't be swept under the rug.
Encoberto, varrido para debaixo do tapete, né?
The committee is being accused of sweeping financial problems under the rug to avoid embarrassment.
Under the rug.
The senator has been accused of trying to sweep his former drug use under the rug. You need to stop sweeping your problems under the rug. Nothing will get resolved like that. Their attempts to sweep the scandal under the rug were not very successful. You can't just brush this one under the rug. He tried to sweep his past mistakes under the rug. For a long time, this problem has been swept under the carpet. The Chinese government seems determined to sweep human rights abuses under the rug by arresting activists and protesters. You can't just sweep these issues under the carpet.
Every single.
He works every single day.
Ele trabalha todo santo dia.
He works every single day. You don't need to warn me every single time. She's frightened every single moment of every single day for herself and her family. I'm tired of being disappointed every single time I look in the mirror. We want an accounting of every single dollar. When he came to reclaim them, every single one had been lost or sold. The bad news is that every single byte of data on the hard drive has been completely and irretrievably lost. He can play in every single competition and every single league all over the world. My mother, just to be cruel, had insisted that every single item be put back where it belonged. You don't need to take pictures of every single thing you eat. I don't need to know every single detail of his life. Don't write down every single word I say. They like to analyze with flip charts every single detail of every single part of the car. Practically every single thing said by every single character will make you laugh.
Get the lowdown. Eu recebi todas as informações.
Oh, I got the lowdown from him. He has some great business opportunity lined up, but naturally he needs to borrow a few $1,000s to get it going. You'll get the lowdown on day-to-day tasks around the office from Jane. She'll give you the lowdown on what you need to do to get started.
Dará instruções.
Can you give me the lowdown on this deal with the Bank of China?
Receber todas as informações.
Okay, let me give you the lowdown. I've got a great plan lined up, but I may need some help to get it done. You'd better give me the lowdown on all the candidates.
Me contar os detalhes.
Give me the lowdown on what the boss is planning to do about the company's falling profits. I'm waiting for my brother to give me the lowdown on Jeffrey before I go on a date with him. There's been a shakeup in the company's upper management, but we won't know how we're affected until the boss gives us the lowdown. Our fashion editor gives you the lowdown on winter coats for this season.
A couple of.
It will take a couple of days for the package to get there.
2 dias.
She lived in Rome for a couple of years, where she taught English. Take a couple of days off. You need a break. I hung a couple of pictures on the wall. Bill grabbed a couple of beers from the refrigerator. There were a couple of guys in uniforms standing by the car, and one was talking into a walkie-talkie. The getaway car was abandoned a couple of kilometers from the scene of the robbery. Take a couple of steps backwards. Can you lend me a couple of dollars? The doctor said my legs should be better in a couple of days. A couple of people objected to the proposal, but the vast majority approved of it. There's not much to do in this town, just the cinema and a couple of pubs. It's not going to be a big party. I just invited over a couple of people from school. I just need a couple of minutes to talk to you about your schedule.
Head count. Contagem.
Collins, please confirm the head count.
Collins, por favor, confirme a contagem.
Collins, please confirm the head count.
Head count.
He left his cell only for meals and inmate head counts. The head count for numbers of children aged 4 in the private sector was first collected in 1999. The new company will operate with an initial head count of 20 staff. The teacher did a head count before we all got back on the bus. She did a head count to make sure all the students were there. I did a quick head count to see how many people had come to the meeting. If you take a head count, you'll know the number of people present. Captain, I've taken a head count. The guards took a head count and they secured the perimeter. Times were hard, and the company was unwilling to increase the head count. 1,000 people have left in the last 6 months, bringing the company's head count down to 3,300. To help streamline the company, the board approved proposals to reduce the head count by 10% worldwide. He said he had reduced the head count by about 35%.
Era loss. Não faço ideia.
I'm at a loss to know how I can help you.
Não faço ideia de como posso ajudar você.
I'm at a loss to know how I can help you. She became popular and was at a loss to know why. He seemed at a loss for words, and then he surprised me with a shy smile. Then we were at a loss for what to do next till I mentioned bowling.
Sem ideia.
Luckily, they made plenty of other mistakes, so we were never at a loss for entertainment. I was at a loss to understand what had happened. Now that the whole schedule has been rearranged, I'm at a loss.
Sem saber o que fazer. I'm at a loss.
Tom was terribly confused, really at a loss. The company was operating at a loss. Most restaurants operate at a loss for a long time before they start turning a profit.
Ficar no prejuízo.
I think the store is going to close soon. It's been selling items at a loss for a long time.
Burst someone's bubble.
I hate to burst your bubble, but that's never going to happen.
Odeio estragar sua alegria, mas isso nunca vai acontecer.
I hate to burst your bubble, but that's never going to happen.
Estourar seu balão, né?
Look, I hate to burst your bubble, but there is no way you're getting into Harvard. I hate to burst your bubble, but Columbus did not discover Canada. A terrible defeat in Saturday's match burst their bubble. Costa burst her bubble, telling her that her boyfriend had been arrested. Look, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I don't think that's the way things work. Even if you think I am being foolish, please don't burst my bubble. Things are going really well for him. I just hope nothing happens to burst his bubble. I hate to burst your bubble, but I don't think he remembers you. He was so happy with the whole thing, I just couldn't burst his bubble.
Gut feeling. Sensação.
Jennifer's mother had a gut feeling that something was wrong when her daughter wasn't home by 10 o'clock.
Gut feeling.
I have a gut feeling that something bad is going to happen.
Pressentimento.
I had a gut feeling that he was lying too. He had a gut feeling there was something seriously wrong. My gut reaction is that we should hire Susan for the job. Don't think too hard about the answers to a personality test. Just go with your gut feeling. Houston had a gut feeling he was being followed, so he hurried to his car. My gut feeling was that this woman was a good woman. Our gut feeling tells us that this will work. I had a gut feeling that I would win.
Have no business.
You have no business coming into this house.
Você não tem o direito de vir nessa casa.
You have no business coming into this house. You had no business reading my private letters. I had no business to be there at all. We get into trouble because we go places we have no business going. You have no business telling my boss that I was late to work. You are just trying to cause trouble. He has no business running this meeting. He has no idea what this project entails. You have no business bursting into the room like that. You have no business coming to my office. We will deal with this situation when I get home. You have no business discussing my personal life with your friends.
Você não tem que ficar.
After all of the mistakes that you have made, you have no business getting involved in my problems. Mom, you had no business eavesdropping on my phone call like that. He was drunk and had no business driving. You have no business walking around this neighborhood at night. I am phoning the police.
Take the ball and run with it. Escolher a melhor e depois levar adiante.
The purpose of this seminar is to brainstorm a variety of different ideas, choose the best one, then take the ball and run with it. Don't be so passive in your role. If you have a good idea, there's no harm in taking the ball and running. It's up to him. If he studies, fine. If not, there's nothing we can do. He's the one who has to take the ball and run with it. We had a very vague idea of what we wanted, but the marketing team just took the ball and ran with it. It's up to the private sector to take the ball and run with it.
Cabe ao setor privado assumir a responsabilidade por isso.
It's up to the private sector to take the ball and run with it. The mainstream media will pick up the ball and run with it.
A mídia de massa tomará conta disso.
They placed a challenge to other colleges to pick up the ball and run with it. If he knew some more patterns and basics, he might take the ball and run with it. It remains to be seen if the government will take the ball and run with it. It was just an original idea that we had to take the ball and run with it.